everybody? It's Coach D back at it again, live, one time for your mind. Another episode of Lost Knowledge presents Fighting His Life with Coach D. This is episode 7. Today we are talking about parenthood, the importance of parenthood, the good effects and the bad effects of parenthood. This subject is something that I spoke on a lot on social media and stuff like that. I want to touch on this. We'll freestyle the subject a little bit. So there's so many ranges we can go with this subject, but I want to touch on the most important things of this subject because it's very, very important, you know, of people that have children and kids and the way you're raising them, what they hear, what they see, what they visualize from you as a parent, mom and dad. Also being now older and have experienced my own things with my own folks and stuff like that, and seeing other people, family members, how they deal with their children and how friends and family and all kind of people, just general how people are. You know, I pay attention to those things very well, and you know, it's a really important thing, man, because you know Whitney Houston said it in a song one day. She goes, you know, the children are our future. They really are, you know, and you know it breaks my heart when I see, you know, kids not being loved, not being taught properly, not being, you know, guided properly, and not being taken care of. You know, I think as parents we all make mistakes. I think as parents we all slip up and we fall short. That's the human nature. You know, it's just that recognizing those mistakes and correcting them and fixing them, so that your children and your kids can grow up to be productive people in this world, and more so that their spirit is intact and that their spirit is okay. That's what we really want to protect, is their spirit and their life, you know, because let me tell you this, that we are, as parents, we are essentially at the beginning responsible for how that kid is going to turn out. You know, it's depending on, you know, now eventually, like I said, when they get older and they become a man or become a woman, they will have to also make their own choices and make their own mistakes. And then at that point, things will be on them. They will have to have the consequences of life to the choices they make, good or bad. But, you know, we can give them a head start, right? We can give them a head start by the way we treat them, the way we love them, or the way we don't love them, or the way we don't treat them right. So it's very important that, you know, in parenthood, we believe that, and I always hear the saying that parents say this a lot, like, you know, I ain't got to do nothing. I put clothes on your back, food on the table, and a roof over your head. I really dislike that a lot, because for you to say that, that's something that you're obligated to do anyway. But try teaching the children about spirituality, teaching them about love, teaching them about forgiveness, teaching them about not being bitter, not being hateful, and showing them a role model of something that they can look up to and that they can guide themselves behind as they're walking through their steps of life and stuff like that. You know, when they're born, here's the deal. When children are born, they don't have a choice. Like think about this. Like, none of us asked to be here. Like, none of us asked to be here. Like, none of us decided, hey, I want to come in this world. A lot of us came in this world all of us came through this world, in my personal spiritual belief, through God's hands. And God used the woman to carry the baby, but none of us, no kids. So we also got to think about when we're in a situation where we're laying down or we're doing certain things, and for our own gratification, for our own sexual needs or whatever the case may is, that there's a life that might be born into that situation. And so we got to be very mindful of that stuff. And then when we do have kids, we have to make sure that we do everything in our power to take care of them because they are our future. And this is why when you see so many things going on in this world, bad stuff, things happening, a lot of it was because people wasn't loved. A lot of this because people wasn't taught right. A lot of this because people wasn't guided right. A lot of it was because people was left abandoned. You know what I mean? I tell people this all the time too. Just because you do have a child that lives in the same household with you, don't mean that you wasn't abandoning that child. Doesn't mean that just because doesn't mean that you actually love that child the way that you should have. Just because, a lot of times we take care of these kids out of obligation because we feel like we have to, or some people do it so they won't get in trouble with the state and stuff like that. But some people really, it's crazy. If they didn't have a choice, if they had a choice not to take care of their kids, they would do it. As we see that happens a lot in this world. So I want to say that, when you're a parent and you're raising these kids, it's very, very, very important that you're mindful of how you interact with that child, how you speak to that child, what that child listens to, what it hears, what it feels, and how it engages, and how that child engages in life, period. You are the one that's in control of that first, nobody else. They say, it starts with the mom and dad at home. I mean, whether the mom and dad are together or whether the mom and dad are apart, it's still an obligation. It's still a job that you have to do. And it's still something that you should want to do. Not that you have to do, but you should want to do it. You should want to see your child happy. You should want to see your children growing up in good things and teaching them things about life and teaching them things about spirituality, teaching them about God, meditation, peace, everything. You should want to do that, It's not enough to put clothes on their back. It's not enough to put food on the table. It's not enough to put a roof over their head. It's just not enough. So I think y'all need to quit saying these kind of things because it's not enough. Because you can have those things and that kid can still be a stranger to you. You can have those things and those kids can still grow up to hate you. It's because the way you treat them. That's what they're going to remember. This is such an important subject because, I see kids every day or grown people every day that are so lost, so confused, so frustrated, so down, so depressed because they just don't know how to figure this life out. Well, a lot of that comes from the teaching or lack of, growing up. Parents, let me tell you this. I'm a parent of a 24-year-old stepson. I was married to his mom for 16 years. I raised him since he was 6 years old. He's my son. I have an 18-year-old biological son, and I have a daughter that's about to be 2 years old. I'm going to share this with you. My children mean the world to me, but doesn't mean that I didn't make mistakes along the way. I have to learn. But you know what? One thing that always kept me going is that the prayer that I had over my children. You got to pray over your kids. You got to pray for wisdom on how to deal with your kids. You got to pray for understanding. This is a serious thing. You can't just have kids. This is a 24-hour job. And let me tell you this part. When you get older, when those kids get older, watch this. They're still your kids. They might be 40-something years old, but they're still your kids. Look at me. I'm pushing 42 years old. 42 years old I am. And let me tell you this. I still call my dad for wisdom. Every once in a while, I call my mom for the same thing. My mom, to this day, still worries about me, no matter what. She still worries about me because you know what? You never stop being a parent. But let me share this with you. Kids are very fragile, and they need to have a lot of attention. Parents, spend time with your kids, please. Take them to the movies. Take them to the park. Hug on them. Little things like this that when you just kiss on your child, when you just hug on your child, you are setting them up for a loving heart. When you do that for these kids, you're setting them up for a loving heart. When you show them that you love them, when you tell them that you love them and show them that, then you're setting them up to be loving people in this world and society. But if you don't do that, then you're also setting them up to be people that don't show those emotions, that don't have the same thing. So it's very important that it starts, and it starts early. It really starts early. Kids pick up on things so fast. They pick up things so early. They pick up on things so quick, so fast, and they discern, and they see, and they feel everything. Don't think for 1 second that they don't. And as they get older, they inherit habits, whether they be good or whether they be bad. And it breaks my heart when I see people, and I talk to young people or even people my age or older that just never could get a grip on life. And I hate to say it, at some point, they do have to take responsibility for who they are and what they do. But I do have to say also, the blame does go on how they grew up, how they was raised, and what they was taught. Conversations go a long way. Talk to your children all the time. You know, sit down with them, hang out with them, laugh with them, kick it with them, let them cry with them, hug them, kiss them, tell them you love them. You have to do all these things. You will set this kid up, and guess what? That child will grow up to be a great parent. That child will grow up to be something that can help somebody else or do something for somebody else. But we think that, you know, like me, you know, when my son was born, you know, it was the best moment in my life. But I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that my son coming into this world was going to make me either put up or shut up. And it also, and I'm gonna tell you this, the mistakes that you make, the mistakes that you have, the things that you do when these kids be brought into this world, it affects them, good or bad. See, when I think I was 24, 25 years old, my son was born. And I remember looking at him, you know, his beautiful face. But I was in a hard place at that time. I wasn't working. I was in those streets doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. At the time, it didn't dawn on me that those things alone would affect my son. That I was going to be the best provider that I could be for my son. But I told my son at 3 months old that I would never leave him and I would never give up on him. And I can say this, thank God that he had a mom and other family that cared about him when I was going through my spell and my ways, and I couldn't provide financially the way that I should have or needed to. But I just wanted to make sure that I was there in my heart for my son and that he knew that I love him and I was never gonna leave him. And when he was old enough to come visit me and stuff like that, I started instilling the love and values in him early. I made sure that I hugged my son. I made sure I told my son that I love him. I made sure that my son knew, if anything else, that his dad loves him. And I wanted him to know that no matter what happens, that I will always be there for him. That was in my head then. See, my dad, the man that raised me, it was because of him is what I found that love was about. He showed me what love was by a hug, by a conversation, by spending time with me. And I appreciate that. You know, at the age that I am now, and I I just really appreciate that. I met the man that birthed me, my biological father, at 16. I reconnected him at 20 when I got out of jail. And he's taught me a lot. So I was blessed to have my dad, Mr. Ray Lamb, that raised me, and my biological father that came on the other end and showed me a lot about spirituality. I was blessed in those manners. You know, there was a lot of things that wasn't taught to me growing up. There was a lot of things that I didn't know about growing up that I had to learn on my own. And for that is the reason why I teach my son these other things. But I'm appreciative of that, and that's what's making me, I believe, because of these men and my mother, my beautiful, great mother, is the reason why I have so much love in my heart and so much compassion for my heart for my children. And I have a daughter, you know, and that was a whole nother thing. When she was born, it gave me a whole different perspective of life. Let me tell you something. Being a parent is a privilege, and you have to treat it as such. Being a parent is a gift. You have to treat it as such. Your children are not your trophies. They're not people they're not using tools to get what you want in life or to use to hurt other people. They're not. They're fragile souls, and they need to be treated as such, because these kids are going to be grown folks one day too. And you have to understand that. This subject to me is so touching to me because I see so many young people, and I talk to so many young people when I do my motivation speaking at the Metro School, and I talk to people in my gym, and I just always engage people. And the most thing when I'm talking to people, I always try to understand, and I always wonder about their childhood. What was their childhood like? What was their childhood like? What was their childhood like? Love your kids. Teach them right. Show them right. I hate this saying too. Don't do as I say, don't do as I do. That's the most foolish thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, these kids are sitting there watching you every day. And my dad told me one day, he said, they're watching you, everything you do. They hear and see everything you do. And I've had to check myself. I had to analyze myself a lot of times in this situation as a dad, because I started losing my grip on things and losing my grip on stuff, and I have to keep analyzing myself so I can get back right to be where I got to be for my kids. For me, being a dad is the best thing that ever happened to me. Being a parent should give you a meaning of life. God blessed you with your children. Your children are your guardian angels. Your children are here to protect you from yourself, from this world. Because as long as you think about God, as long as you think about those beautiful, cherishable lives that you have in your possession, the more you should be able to want, the more you should want to be able to be the best human being you can be. Parenthood is the best gift you can have, the most powerful gift you can have, but it has the most responsibility. And it's a responsibility that's a 24/7 job. How much do you love your kids? How much do you love your children? Are you willing to die for yourself? Are you willing to deny yourself and your ways for your kids so that they can live? Right now, I feel so happy because my son's in college, and he's got his mind right. Very smart, very wise, take care of responsibility. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he don't do none of that. Not saying that all that stuff is bad, I'm just saying that my son's 18-year-old and his priority is right. I didn't have that mindset when I was 18. I got in trouble. I found love in places that I shouldn't found love in. And I vowed to myself that I would love my son, that I would hug my son, that I would always be there. And I'm going to do the same for my daughter. I want you, my challenge to all of you, parents out there, is to do the same. Are you going to make mistakes? Yes. But get back on that horse and keep riding, because your children need you. They are our future. Don't set them up for failure. You set them up for success. And you do it by love. You do it by consistency. You do it by believing in him, believing in God, believing in yourself. They need us. It breaks my heart when I see lost kids. But guess what? Some of these parents were lost because they wasn't taught properly. And it's a generational curse. And we got to break that generational curse. We got to break that. Over my body, dead body, if it kills me, my kids will have good lives. When I think about where I struggle and where I'm struggling at now and what I'm doing in my life now, when I think about that stuff, I always think about, I never want my kids to go through this. And you shouldn't either. And parents, let me tell you something. If you're messing up, it's not too late to change. But it has to start now. Parenthood, the most powerful position to have as a human being on this earth. Teach them right. Love them. Spend time with them. Kiss them. Hug them. Tell them what they mean to you. And you show them that every day of their life. And I guarantee you'll have children that will become great parents as well, that will become great people in this world that can help others. That concludes my story, an episode, Parenthood. God bless you.